go.
Welcome back, Double Teamed fam. How are we doing today? We are recording with a podcast that is very near and dear to our hearts. Not only are they in the same network as us, and we talk a bunch, but they also cover non-monogamy. So this is an alignment. So welcome, Emily from Multiamory Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
We're thrilled.
Yay.
I want to record with all three of you at one point.
I agree. Jason Dedeker, who are my co-hosts,
Yes.
are in Seattle. And so often we have to record all over the world, or they're recording in Seattle and I'm usually in Los Angeles. So we tend to almost never record together, which is really unfortunate. Because there is something nice.
Here?
They did,
Okay,
absolutely,
okay.
yeah. But then they moved a few years ago, during the pandemic. So, and sometimes, honestly, I was in Hong Kong for 2 months, and they were in Japan, and so we truly have to record.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all across the globe.
Do you like the... Nikki and I suck at virtual recording, so that's why we just
we gave them a
stopped it
try, and
altogether.
it was we had nothing but technical issues with them. So
Yeah.
that's why now we're we'll only do in person.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think because we've gotten so used to it over the years. Dedeker was for a very long time called a digital nomad, and so she truly was all over the world, and so we had to kind of get used to it and get good at it from a really early time.
Yeah.
And I think it works fine for us. Obviously, it's not quite as intimate, but you can still, as long as you know what you're doing, I think that you can still do a good job in a podcast. Yeah, from across the globe.
And you guys have been doing the show 2014, something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say 29 years. No, it feels like it. Yeah, we're entering into our 9th year, which is really incredible to say.
Wow.
Because just thinking about how young we were when we started it, and now all of us are kind of in this very different place in our lives than we were when we started it as well. So,
Well, I'm sure your audience loves that because they've probably, gotten to watch you guys grow up in a way. And,
that's true.
Yeah. Evolve and morph into different people.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, I love that. I feel like even in the just, 2 years that we've been doing our show, or just, I guess it's about 2 years.
Almost 2 years, yeah.
Sometimes I look back at our old episodes and I'm like, oh my God, I don't even recognize who that is.
Yeah, no, likewise. And just the quality was so bad back in the day.
Same, yeah.
We archived, I think, our first 75 episodes because we were like, nobody needs to listen to those. Please, nobody, just don't. And so after that, the quality started to get better. But I remember we were huddled underneath a blanket around one microphone, and it was so hot. You don't want, a bunch of air conditioning to be going on. So it was really hot in our Valley apartment, Jason, my apartment. And the three of us were doing a podcast that way back in the day in 2014. So yeah, I don't recommend listening to those, and I'm glad that they are gone and scrubbed from the world at this point.
I told Cami we should archive some of our old episodes.
Yeah.
But
You can just redo them maybe. If there's a similar topic that you can maybe do an updated version of them. We've done that with quite a few of our episodes.
I like that. I think we could do an updated version of the penis size episode.
Oh my God, that's a great idea.
Because that one still is the number one question. Does size
Really?
matter?
Oh, wow.
Question, does size matter? What do you think?
Oh gosh, I don't think it necessarily does. No way. It just is. Size is. There's so much that you can do with a penis, regardless of what size it is.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a great answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It doesn't really matter.
That's what I've told people too. I'm I definitely agree that there are some sizes can have, some challenges, too big can be overwhelming.
True.
Or sometimes if you're kind of in the micro range, maybe you can feel kind of intimidated as to what to do with it as well. But for the most part, I always tell people, I'm no, it's just I don't know. I've had a variety of experiences with a variety of sizes that have all been amazing. So
yeah,
anyways.
we did. I had a conversation with Dedeker recently, and she was talking to me about a partner, and she was like, yeah, there is a point at which size becomes a little bit too big, and then it's very intimidating.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if I want that, coming near me. but yeah, exactly. When it becomes a little bit scary, but I think, for the most part, it's all good.
Love that.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of archived episodes, I remember we had a listener that was like, I just finished all your episodes. I'm going back and listening from the start. And I'm like, why? I was like, wait, no, not the first 10. Just
That's amazing. That's dedication right there. That's awesome.
well, I mean, right now I think we have 88 episodes, something
That's
like
awesome.
that.
So yeah, we're close to that age, I
Congratulations.
remember.
So, but I think when they had sent that was a few months back. So I was like, thank you, I'm flattered, but also like, okay, the quality's like. We also started in my apartment.
I know. I was
Really?
gonna say your
Yeah.
origin story sounded so much like ours.
Exactly.
It was one microphone, the two of us in Cammie's apartment, trying to make
Wow.
sure there was like no noise, even though
Yeah.
you can hear like the sirens going off because it's the middle of Los Angeles.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, and
Okay.
quality was okay, but
Wait, I have a
got better.
question because you said you and Jace's apartment.
Yeah.
So tell me how y'all started. I know our listeners would probably love to hear about how Multiamory began.
Sure.
But
I was gonna say I don't
I-
know if everyone knows your origin story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jace and I were monogamous for quite a few years. We met in 2010 and started dating and lived together, and then sort of had like a period of a brief breakup and realized through that breakup, hey, I think we should try non-monogamy. It was Jace's idea, and I was kind of not particularly on board at first, but then after a while, I realized that I had some people in my life that I was interested in from college and people that I had never slept with, but kind of wanted to, and to see where that went. And so I ended up going to San Diego and sleeping with a guy that I was really infatuated with when I was a senior in college. And finally we slept together, and I came back up to LA from San Diego, and I was like, okay, yeah, I think I can do this. And so Jason and I were polyamorous after that for a while, and we met Dedeker online. I actually met her partner, who she was, I think primaried with is the correct term to use for what they were at the time. And I started dating him, and then OkCupid back then, and I think now still too, was linked to, the two profiles were linked together. And so we saw Dedeker's profile from his, and so Jace started dating Dedeker.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so that continued on for a while, and in the middle of that, we realized that there weren't a lot of options out there for non-monogamous people in like podcast form or even that many books. There was The Ethical Slut and Opening Up by Tristan Taormino, but not a huge amount of resources out there for non-monogamous people. And for whatever stupid reason, I don't know, Jace was really into podcasts even way back then, but for whatever reason, we were like, yeah, we could do this. We could talk about non-monogamy and what we're learning and try to, have an educational perspective about it. And so we started a podcast in August of 2014. And as I said, it was not great at first, and we made a lot of mistakes, and we also went on Reddit and learned all the things that people didn't like about our show, which was actually really beneficial, I think, to us, because we realized, okay, we're rambling too much at the beginning. There are segments that are not interesting to people that we should be cutting out. And what people really want from our show is education and value and specific topics that we can research and try to figure out, okay, what are some things that happen when you're in non-monogamy, like jealousy, and also, any of the topics that tend to come up along those lines. And I think it sort of morphed into what it is today, which it's become very much like an educational, research-backed podcast where we, go and research a topic. We may even look up studies on it and then sort of try to regurgitate that information back to the audience. And they also give us a lot of great ideas for podcast episodes as well.
Love that.
In terms of relationship, Jason and I are no longer together. And I also was with Dedeker for a brief time during that as well, and we were a triad. But I'm not with either of them anymore. However, they are still together. And I'm actually monogamous now. I've been with a partner for, 8 years.
Oh,
so
wow.
for a long time, yeah, and I live with him. And yeah, I mean, the great thing is that I'm still such great friends with Jason Dedeker, and we're business partners. And it's wonderful to know that you can be friends with people that you are exes with and still make that relationship work and even thrive, I think, more effectively than it used to.
Question, with your partner that you're monogamous with currently, did it start off non-monogamous and then kind of switch into
It
monogamy?
did, yeah. Because I mean, I was non-monogamous when I met him. I was still
Okay.
dating Jason Dedeker and other people as well. And we tried non-monogamy for a while, but I think he's definitely more monogamous leaning. And have you heard of the term ambiamorous?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think ambiamorous is just essentially being able to sort of take on the relationship style and structure of whatever, fits the relationship at that point. And I certainly could do non-monogamy again. And, maybe that would be something that he would want to explore as well. But at this point, it seems like it's best for the relationship to be monogamous. So that's where we're at this point. And it's nice to have that varied perspective, I think, on the podcast, because the two of them have remained polyamorous for a very long time. And I am the monogamous kind of facing person of the show.
The diversity hire. No, I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
well, it's good to I think have both, because we have people who listen to the show who are not necessarily non-monogamous as well.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I agree because I will say when I started the show, I was very like pro non-monogamy, which I still am, and like I wouldn't say that I was like anti-monogamy, but I just like I was in that phase where I was so like, oh my god, everyone just needs to like screw monogamy.
100%.
However, I definitely recognize that like my marriage, for example, it had started off monogamous, and I really cherished that time, and then we switched to non-monogamy. Now we're divorced. It's a whole nother story, but
Oh, wow.
but it worked for us then, and then we switched to non-monogamy, and that worked for us then. And so it's like, it can, sometimes like one or the other may fit your life and differently or like better or whatever, depending on kind of like where you are in that phase, the partner that you're with, like your goals around that life, around that era. So now I kind of champion more so for like the fluidity of like understanding like what best fits, your life and like what your goals are, whatever. So yeah, I don't know.
Totally, I agree. Yeah.
I was going to say, I love that y'all, sorry, I have congestion. Anyways, I love that, you all three started, you and Jace were together and Dedeker came into the picture, and then you became, you started the podcast, and now they're dating. And like you said, like a perfect example of a couple or, couples, triad, whatever, that, ends things but continues in, a friend way, in, partnership way that looks different but is still healthy, supportive, loving, all those things. Because, yeah, I'm going through a breakup right now, and it's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I always have the hope that, like, of course, he and I can, remain friends to some degree. And, just because the relationship wasn't working, the care and the love is still there. So, if
100%,
that can turn into a friendship, that would be great. So
I hope that for you as well. I know
Thanks.
breakups are really tough, and it's tough to, not know what the trajectory of that relationship is going to be. And I think time does help, and
Yeah.
it can heal some wounds at least, or make them not be as challenging as they once were, especially in the moment. So
Yeah.
I agree. And it is nice. It's just a testament, I think, to our commitment to each other as friends and as business partners, that we are like, yeah, we're going to make this relationship work.
people. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it's in a different capacity than it once was.
And I think that just the foundation of the relationship, obviously, I think there's, you can really see the respect that you have for each other if after, a breakup or like a change in the dynamic or a de-escalation, obviously like everyone needs a little bit of time to kind of let feelings dissipate and whatnot. But like if you still see that respect and that care afterwards, I think that always goes to show for like, the kind of true like love and respect that you had for each other.
Yeah.
Because it's always like, when you see like the cattiness come out and all of that and the, the vindictiveness, that's when you're like, or at least in those situations, that's when I question, the validity of kind of like the respect for each other prior to the relationship. But my divorce was very amicable.
Really?
And I think,
Yeah,
and I
that's
think for
great.
that as well is like a true testament to like, the foundation and the friendship that we built.
Yeah. And the
You know,
respect for one another.
Exactly. And all of that. Yeah.
it's funny because I've met you and Dedeker. I've not met Jace. But
Oh,
when
wow. Gosh. Yeah. I guess you're right. That's true.
But when I met you and Dedeker, y'all both gave off like the same energy to me. And I was like, I can
Interesting.
definitely see why, they're friends and they were, together in the past. I could definitely see that.
So Jace has a type.
Yeah. And it's funny because Dedeker also has a type. She's dated a lot of people that are like really into tech and really nerdy and, you know, just, yeah, these types of guys for sure. So I know it's funny. It's interesting when you're non-monogamous and you can kind of see like, wow, am I dating the same type of person over and over again? Or is this an opportunity for me to branch out and kind of date someone that I may not have been necessarily interested in immediately?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you get this question a lot, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but do you miss non-monogamy?
I think, and I figured that you might ask this question, what I think is something that you don't do as much when you're monogamous. There are certain parts of non-monogamy that you have to be working on yourself in, I think. And when you're monogamous, you don't have to work on the part of yourself that's like, if I see my partner with another person, how am I going to react to that? Or internal work, I think, of that type.
Yep.
And so I miss the opportunity at times to be able to do that. But I think a lot of the things that you get in non-monogamy, you can find in other areas of your life as well if you prioritize them, such as intimacy with another person in a variety of ways. It may not necessarily look sexual,
Right.
But it can still be a really emotional intimacy that can happen. So I try to prioritize friendships, and Jason Dedeker are a part of that for sure. And I think that I'm super vulnerable with the two of them. And, you know, having relationships with a therapist or another type of trusted friend or family, all of those things are, I think, relationships that it get kind of pushed to the wayside in traditional monogamous senses.
Yeah.
And, you know, we so often, I think, as a society, try to frame the nuclear family as the most important thing.
Yep.
And that's it. And everything else should be secondary. And I think that if you prioritize, like, I'm going to make sure that my other relationships in my life are extremely important to me, then you can still get a lot of the same things that non-monogamy offers you. So
No, I agree. Yeah.
I try to make sure that my life is inclusive of those things as well, even if I'm not having sex with multiple people. I'm bisexual, so I do miss that aspect of it. I haven't, you know, I haven't had a threesome or been with a woman in a very long time, and that's challenging at times because I miss that part of my life. But I've talked with my partner about it, and he and I may revisit that again in the future.
Oh, I love that.
I'm manifesting that for you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I was like, I had my birthday yesterday, and I was like, I think we're moving into a period of life where that could maybe be a thing again. So we'll see.
Love that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, especially since you've had kind of, you know, experience with both monogamy and non-monogamy pretty extensively, you know, and I've thought about this, how I would answer this too sometimes, but what do you think monogamy could learn from non-monogamy and vice versa?
Well, what I just talked about is a big one for sure. It's not deprioritizing other things and people in your life to a degree that I think so many of us are taught that we should. And also I think prioritizing independence and the ability to like work on oneself and not just stagnate, I think, that growth internally, because so many people do. They're kind of like, I'm partner now, so I'm good.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I don't need to continue working on who I am as a person and developing my own interests outside of this partnership. And that's something that I think, regardless of what relationship structure you're in, you definitely should be looking at, because we only move forward. We're only swimming forward until our eventual death. And I think we might as well be working to be the best, truest parts of ourselves and best version of ourselves that we possibly can, for the trajectory of our lives. And I just would say, additionally, in non-monogamy, you can choose in a lot of ways what it is that your relationship is going to look like. And I think monogamy, there's so many prescriptive things that we just believe, okay, monogamy is going to look like this. It means I have to live with this person. It means if I'm going to have kids, they're going to be with this person, and all of those types of things as well. And in non-monogamy, I think you can decide, I'm going to have kids maybe with a best friend and raise them, or I'm never going to live with a partner and I'm always going to be solo polyamorous, for instance. And I think it would be great if those in monogamous relationships could also pick and choose what it was that they wanted out of their specific relationship, and that would be okay and not taboo.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
I think that a lot of people are starting to move away from the idea that I have to live with the person that I'm sleeping with. And instead,
Sometimes you're not compatible.
yeah,
for
totally.
living, yeah.
At 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great to be able to be with a friend in that capacity that maybe you live way better with, or alone, or any number of things. So there's a lot, honestly, that people who are monogamous can learn from non-monogamy. And I personally try to implement some of those things into my life and relationship as well.
Yeah. I love that you said the thing about growth, because, you know, at the tail end of monogamy for my ex-husband and I was like, how old was I? I think it was right before 2017. So we would have been, I don't know, like mid-20s, I think it was. Like 24, 25. I really can't do the math off the top of my head. Anyways, but right before that, I was like starting to feel old. And I was like, because I feel like I wasn't really like growing. And I was like, and then we were really kind of like settling into anything, you know, everything. We had like a house and like, you know, and I was just like starting to feel like I'd kind of like reached like the peak of my 20s, or like the peak of like, I was like, and then I was starting to freak out because I'm like, oh my God, I'm starting to get closer to 30 than I am to 20 and and like all these things. And then whenever we started non-monogamy, I felt like it felt like a rebirth, and and like starting to do all that growth again, and like, you know, kind of meeting so many new versions of myself and everything. I felt like a baby.
Wow.
I was like, what the fuck was I thinking that I was getting old at 25? I'm like, I am a child.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, and I think, you know, now I'm 29, near 30, and I feel like, you know, it's like I have the whole world ahead of me. And so I think sometimes that like internal growth that non-monogamy really forces out of you. Really, and then honestly, it has been kind of one of my most favorite things about non-monogamy. I've met so many different versions of myself, you know, throughout my whole process in it and my journey and whatnot. And like that to me is like what I love the most about it. But yeah, I am trying to think though, like what non-monogamy can learn from monogamy. And I'm like, it's not loyalty, but I was like, I don't know how to answer that one.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Because there's definitely loyalty in non-monogamy.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know.
I know, that's what I was trying to think.
I know all of us are like, is there anything? I don't know. If there is anything, listener, why don't you let us know in the comments below?
That's why I was thinking when I came up with that question, I was like, oh wait, I'm like, I don't know how to answer like the reverse of it. I was curious to see if you had anything, but it did kind of stump me. But I also think, you know, it is, you know, like you were saying, monogamy does come with so many of kind of like those like, shit, what was the term
Also,
you used?
Nicole, quit grabbing your mic.
Oh, can you tell?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I didn't realize that. I don't have the headphones, so I don't know. Anyways, you know, because the framework for monogamy has been so laid out, and there are all these things and all the, you know, the boxes that you got to check and that like it feels like a very kind of standard mold, like you said, that not a lot of people can like break out of. So I feel like in some ways, you know, it doesn't really get the opportunity to become something that like it can be, you know, where someone can grow and whatnot, just because like of all the things that like society has already placed on it. So that's interesting.
Totally.
But yeah, I don't know.
Well, and another thing we wanted to talk about was y'all have a book coming up.
I know that's been like the journey of your podcast. Actually, who was it? Good Moms Bad Choices also just came out with
They did.
Yeah. So I'd love to see. I can't wait to read all these books.
I know it feels like a year for a lot of books coming out. I know quite a few non-monogamous books, and then also sex-positive books and things along those lines coming out.
Love that.
Our book is called Multiamory: Essential Tools for Modern Relationships.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad you said the title, because I was like, it was a little long.
Yeah, it's long. You're like, wait, I have to memorize that? Yeah. No, it's fine.
I love it.
Yeah, and I will say our book is definitely not a polyamory how-to. Mm-hmm. It is a collection of our different tools that we've created over the years for relationships, and you can use those tools in any type of relationship, whether you're
applicable to any of them.
Yes, monogamous, non-monogamous, etc. For sure.
Love that.
And it's great. We had started doing the whole proposal process back in 2019. So it's
Oh,
been
wow.
4 years. Yeah. And now finally, it's coming out on May 23rd of this year. So we're
How
super
exciting.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazon or where is it going to be sold?
Everywhere. Yeah. It's
Everywhere?
on Amazon, Simon & Schuster, Barnes & Noble. Yeah. Indie bookstores for sure.
Perfect.
Any of the above. Yeah.
Are there going to be hard copies?
Oh, yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
perfect.
Yeah. No, this
want a
was a
hard copy.
traditional publisher. And so you can find it wherever, but there will be ebook and then also hard copies. And then we are in the midst of trying to figure out an audiobook as well. So
Ooh.
excited for that.
I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like y'all's voices too.
Oh,
so.
thank you.
Well, actually, so the three of you co-wrote this, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And that's a whole thing as well. Like co-writing a book with 3 people, it can be a challenge, but we had to sit down and very much like our episodes, we color coded like the outline essentially to every single chapter.
Yeah.
This person's going to take this thing and that person's going to take this section. And then we sort of put it all together and then reread everyone's, sections and rewrote things and stuff along those lines. So we were able to put it all together then.
So is each section kind of like an individual voice or it's everyone contributing
It's
to that
everyone
one?
contributing.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then we also have breakout sections that are like, Emily says blah, 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 blah about
Love
this
that.
particular thing, or, giving my own sort of anecdotal take on something. And they do the same thing. So yeah, it's fun.
I'm curious, and obviously each of you are kind of bringing your own perspectives into it and everything, but like, what are you hoping that the readers see from your voice? Like, what are you hoping to like portray with it?
Sure. I mean, these tools are things that I know our audience really appreciates and uses a lot. One of them, for instance, is our radar tool. And that is a tool essentially that is for creating like a state of the union, essentially for the relationship that you do on a monthly basis or a bi-monthly basis or something along those lines. So you can sit with a partner in a safe space and discuss a variety of things about, different topics like sex, money, household, things along those lines, and really discuss like, did we have a fight this month? What are the things that we did really well this month as a couple?
Yeah.
What are things we want to improve on? And then creating action points to say, okay, within this next month, I'm going to make sure that I text you in the middle of the day because you said that you wanted to feel closer to me in some way. And so it's coming together to create those different things that will hopefully make the relationship better. And then the next month, you kind of see how you did and see what are other areas that we can improve upon.
Sounds like our
like that.
therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
So Katie and I have a joint therapist.
Oh,
and-
nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, when we moved back in together after my divorce and her split, living with your twin after some very big changes comes with some challenges. So when you said all that, I'm like, we have weekly meetings where we discuss everything, but we also have like check-ins where we talk about like our feelings. We have our therapy sessions, all of that. So when you were talking about that, I'm like, this sounds familiar. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which goes to show, like, those kind of tools can apply to any relationship.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. I mean, people use it like with their roommates or with their family, anything along those lines. And it's great because we're hoping to sort of diminish the day-to-day need for stuff like that. Like you get in the middle of a really big fight and you're like, hey, why don't we set this down for now and maybe come back to it once we have our radar? And then we can discuss it when we're not as emotionally charged, when we're not feeling as shitty about this particular thing. We can come like with a clearer head. And so, yeah, we wanted to make sure that those moments happen less and less, hopefully, and that instead of needing to do that on a day-to-day basis or on a week-to-week basis, you can kind of come and do it in this safe space and really talk about it without those charged emotions.
I'm curious, how often do you and your partner have like radar sessions?
Generally,
or
it's month to month.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And yes, I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't talk about things
Right.
as they come up, but hopefully it will diminish the need to do that all the time.
Yeah. No, that's always kind of been my recommendation because we started off with check-ins and I think we did monthly as well.
We as in you and your husband.
Oh, yeah. My,
not the
yeah,
couple
it's not the two of you. Yeah.
Sorry. My ex-husband and I, when we started off with non-monogamy, we started doing more check-ins. But I would say like monthly. I would say before that when we were monogamous, we probably still did every like maybe every couple of months. It wasn't like formal though. We didn't
Sure.
really kind of have like a formal structure to it until much later. But yeah, I just remember like whenever I first got married and we would like have these fights all the time and like these big like blowouts and da-da-da. Finally, I was like, I think we need to start like, setting time aside to like, So it's funny how everyone kind of comes to those kind of things. Granted, some people never implement it into their relationships, but for the people that do, like, I mean, everyone that I've ever recommended something of that kind of like, similar structure to, they always say it like works out great. Or like when people see that like on, other podcasts or whatever, they're like, oh my God, this is a great idea. And I'm like, it seems so simple, and you think like, oh, that makes, that's a no brainer. Exactly. But like not everyone, I think, thinks to like necessarily set aside the time for that. And
I
with
think
any
it's-
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it can be daunting to a lot of people, or just
True.
not that
Yeah.
interesting to some people. Some people might be like, wait, I have to, sit down and talk about my relationship.
My
Like
feelings.
that's like that sounds A, scary, or B, boring, or just not something that I even want to go there. And so I think it's great though when you have a few of those behind you and when you've done it enough to see like, hey, this is a pattern with us. Like we're doing this thing over and over again.
Yep.
What do we need to be doing in order to make that not happen and break that cycle and break that pattern? That's huge. So I think it's super important because it's hard to like granularly look at your relationship when you're in it every day, when you're in like the mud and the muck and working through something. And when you can kind of like look at it from 30,000 feet. We also keep a Google document of like notes about what happened, in that specific radar. And I think that's really important too, because you can look back over the years that you do it potentially and kind of see the progress that you've made.
It's like
Wow.
a journal.
Yeah. Yeah. But a journal that you do with your significant other.
It's like a joint journal.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
definitely a step above what I ever. Because I never wrote it down. We always just like had our talks. We're like,
Yeah,
oh, but I
and
think
that's
a
fine
great- I think that's
too,
great.
but yeah,
No,
it-
that's super like organized. I love it. I can definitely tell one of y'all is a
Sure.
Virgo for sure.
Oh, that would be Dedeker. That would be Dedeker. Yes.
I
yeah.
love that.
No, for sure. But I think that's really important, and it's nice to be able to see, like, celebrate the things that have gone well in your relationship as well, and to see like, hey, we're not doing that anymore. Like, good for us.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go out and celebrate, and implement a new thing into our relationship, maybe.
Love that.
Threesomes.
Yes, there you go. I
Stirring the
appreciate
pot.
that. Yes, I appreciate that.
I will say I look back on my journal sometimes, and I've been journaling since kind of like the beginning of my marriage. So by now, well, I'm not married anymore, but 10 years or so. And sometimes I look back and it's just like, yeah, I love the perspective of it, and so like it would be so interesting to like do that jointly, like with a relationship. And
Yeah.
kind of what you're saying about that, like different perspective. I find definitely non-monogamy that like when I'm like thinking about one of my relationships and like trying to sort through something, then I like shift to the perspective of another relationship, and then I can see the problems from that relationship like completely different. And then you're like, oh shit,
And no, totally, because so often I think we bring the problems from the past into our current relationships.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
And that sucks because you also expect like everyone to act the same. Like I expect sometimes my partner to do the same thing that Jace did, and that's
Yeah.
not going to be what's going to happen. And so it's tough because there's that baggage that happens for better or for worse, and you have to realize like these people are different. And in non-monogamy, you may have a variety of people that are different in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
They all band together and like, it's you.
You're the one with the
Gosh. And sometimes it is us. It is,
Yeah.
the person that is kind of the common denominator there. But that's good to look at too and to realize.
Yeah, sometimes you have to look at the patterns that you create. And
Yes.
you're like, oh, okay, I need to
No,
work on
I
that.
have to break this. Yeah.
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 Is
no,
your
totally.
current partner are they like good friends with Jace and Dedeker as well?
I
Like-
wouldn't say good friends.
Not
no.
friends? Okay, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
no. I mean, the Jason Dedeker and I kind of have our own separate relationship.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. But
Interesting.
we all met. There was for a long time kind of like a frat house in Santa Monica that a bunch of like sort of nerdy adult frat house nerdy people
Love
would
that.
go to and like have a bunch of parties and stuff.
Yeah,
and
love
my
that.
my current partner lived there, and so I started dating him when Jason and I would go to those parties. So that was fun. Yeah.
Nice. I
Yeah.
like it. I'm curious. And and another one that you don't have to answer if you don't want to. What, like, if you when you look ahead, like, what does the ideal relationship look like to you? Or do you know yet? Or like,
interesting.
have you felt if that's like, morphed in any way? I'm curious.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think I tend to go with the flow a lot in my relationships. I tend to sort of, I'm definitely more of like, I'm good with anything. Some people I think like have a very clear structure of what it is that they want in terms of their relationships, and it needs to look this way or else I'm not going to be happy. But I think I'm more along the lines of what is something that the two of us can grow together. And yeah, one that has less conflict or that the conflict is constructive, I think is always good. And that's something that my partner and I have worked on for years. And I think that it's gotten to a place where that really is the case with us, where conflict doesn't enter very often. And when it does, it's super constructive and we're able to talk critically about it.
Love that.
Yeah, but it's always, I live in Los Angeles, so it's like, what, do kids enter the picture ever or not?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know that that'll be the case. It's tough because we want to do so many things in our life, and yet adding like another person to that is tough. Like a human being that you have to feed and clothe, not just like another person that you would sleep with or have sex with. So things along those lines, I think, are tough. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I think Nikki and I are both team. We don't really think we want kiddos.
Yeah, I get that, and it's kind of shocking. I think like how many people are of that mind now. And completely understandably so, because it's so fucking difficult to have a kid. And especially like in this economy, really? Yeah.
Monogamy is hard enough in this economy.
Totally. I know.
Wait, and that actually brings up a question for me. Do y'all, in your book, do y'all discuss like how children might affect certain relationships or?
None of us have children.
I know, I was curious about that.
Yeah, from that standpoint, we really don't try to talk about stuff that we don't know a lot about. We've had some people on the show that do have kids so that we can offer that perspective as well.
Nice.
But it's difficult. I mean, we've included a ton of people in the non-monogamous space within the book, and they talk about, we've asked them for quotes, and so they're quoted all throughout the book, which is great. But kids, I mean, yeah, they add a whole other layer of complexity when it comes to non-monogamy for sure. But also I think I know people who have kids that so appreciate the fact that their kids know other great adults and that they are, accustomed to having multiple wonderful adults in their life, and that the nuclear family isn't the end all be all to what a kid has to experience growing up. I think, I mean, my mom was a single mom, but I had my grandmother too, and she lived with us. And so I still had two parents in essence. Yeah. But I think it would have been great to have more. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that too. It's wonderful to be able to be accustomed to multiple types of people in your life as you're growing up. Yeah.
No, I know. I feel like that's one of the topics that comes up a lot in non-monogamy. It's like where people, and I would say like, a lot of the people that are like skeptical of like non-monogamous relationships with children, they're like, well, what if the children are exposed to like, bad people, et cetera, and whatnot. And so like, that's always a topic. And granted, we don't have kids either, so it's not something we touch on either. And we should do some episodes with some people that like Remodeled Love, for example.
Yeah, we had them on for sure. And
love that. Yeah, I follow them on Instagram and love their content. And so like it's great to see.
No, and I think something that Jessica said on our show was just it is great to be able to have like a moment to stop and set down that part of your life and be able to be away and with your other lover potentially, and know that like, hey, I have people who are going to be taking care of my kids, and I know that, and I am able to do that because I am so okay with the people in my life, like metamors or other partners or whatever, that can be helping to take care of my kids. And that's really nice, because I think in monogamous relationships, you don't often get to set that down ever.
Yeah.
And potentially it's maybe even healthier to be able to like be yourself at times and not just be an extension of this kid.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think we're all going to go back to communal living at one
I
point.
mean,
enough, yeah.
right? Yeah. I think that sounds great. Yeah, we've
I agree.
joked.
Yeah.
Jason Dedeker and I have joked, like, what if we create like the Multiamory house someday and just like everyone lives in it and
I
our
love
parents
that,
and all
yeah.
of that. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
I'll go visit.
yeah, totally. Please. Exactly. Y'all are welcome too. Like, go
Thank
for
you.
it.
I know you mentioned the radar tool. I'm curious, especially as you mentioned that you guys brought like the perspectives of some other people. Were there any tools that anyone like introduced you to that you guys included?
So we did, yes. We have a glossary in the back with like, I'm trying to think, it's probably at least 15 tools that are ones that we talk about on the show. And we have like a page or two on each of them. In addition, we also have like a little section that says, if you want to learn more about this, go to this person's website or
Love
look
that.
up this book or find this person on Instagram, for instance.
Yeah.
And then we have a glossary also in the very back of all of the people that were quoted in the book and where to find them as well. So we definitely want to like give back to the community that's given so much to us in terms of putting them in our book and making sure that other people can find them as well.
Yeah.
I will say there's a woman, Kathy Labriola, who kind of, we took one of her tools and then retooled it, and it's called the Triforce of Communication. We're big Zelda nerds, and so that's why Legend of Zelda, we use the Triforce. But people in our community know what that is, and it's basically 3 different ways of communicating, and that you ask for it whenever you go into potentially like a heated time when you're talking about like, I need something from you in this moment. So the first Triforce is just, I'm putting this out there. I don't need anything from you. I just want to get this off my chest. I'm just going to say this thing. Like, hey, I have this thing to do today. So I may be a little bit out of it and you may be wondering what's going on with me. It's not about you. It's just I'm thinking about this other thing. I'm just putting it out there to the world.
Love that.
The second Triforce is I really want some love and some support. I don't need you to tell me what to do in this scenario, but I'm having a hard time with this and I just need some care from you. So that's the second one. And the third one is offering advice. So, hey, I really want advice from you. I would like help with this situation. I want you to tell me like what it is that I need to be doing. Or, if you've been in that situation before, like what is it that you did? Because I think so often we get into times where we're venting and then our partner is like, well, why don't you do this?
And then you're like,
And it's like, fuck you. I don't want your advice right now. I just want you to hold me.
Yeah.
Please. And so we're hoping that it offers a way to do that and to say to your partner compassionately, like, I'm just looking for Triforce number 2 right now.
Love
so
that.
I don't need you to tell me what to do, especially because a lot of men tend to do that immediately. Yes.
Nikki and I actually,
I was gonna say, as she was saying this, I was like, we should do this.
Really? Yeah.
Because sometimes
Yes.
I'm like, and we started kind of picking up on that. Like, at times we'll be like, I don't need you to give me advice. I just want to get, I just want to vent and say this.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay. And then, one of us is like dying to give the other advice, but then we're like, holding our tongue because that's not, so.
Well, it's good that you recognize that and that you're able to do that already. But I think a lot of people they're like, well, you clearly are hurting and I want to help you. And so I'm going to give you advice.
Yeah.
It's not coming from a bad place, but it still may result in an argument because you're like, listen, I didn't need that from you. Why are you doing that in this moment? So it's just a shorthand way of being able to relay to your partner, this is what I need from you in this moment.
And
Love
sometimes
that.
people don't see that. It took a while for Nicole and I Nikki and I to like see that, like, oh, okay, she's just telling me this. She doesn't want my 3-page essay on why she should,
Totally
not do that anymore. So
And I also like kind of, like you said, the Triforce 1, 2, or 3, where you can just be like, this is, I need Triforce 1 right now.
Yep.
I love that because like, you don't have to sit there and be like, right now, I just need you to listen and not do anything. And I'm just going to say something. Instead, you could just like,
T1,
yeah, you know
T2,
the
T3.
terms,
Yes.
and now you can just go into and be like, okay, T1, and they're like, got it.
Yep.
Love that.
Because
I'm
sometimes
big
you
on
just
those
need
kind
to
of
get
things.
it off your chest.
Yeah.
And y'all also have that on your Patreon, right?
Yes.
Dedeker was telling me that.
Yeah,
So, 'cause
yeah.
you have a big community on Patreon.
We do, which we're so unbelievably fortunate to have. But one of the things we offer with our Patreon is a Facebook and Discord community. And so that's, I don't know, 1,600 people at this point.
Oh, wow.
And it's great because we're able to discuss things. Whenever people post on there, they're like, I'm looking for T1 or I'm looking for T2. And that's great
think that's
because,
perfect.
yes, because then we don't get into like this big issue on the comments
Yeah.
with people being like, you should have done this. And instead it's like, I feel for you. I've been there. That sucks. Like, poor baby, things along those lines.
Yeah.
And it's great. It adds
Super important.
Yes. And then we don't have to have a community that's like combative. Instead, really, mostly it's totally lovely. And it's a great place to hang out and be. So,
Oh, we need to join.
oh
A,
yeah.
we need to join. B, we should start a Discord for our.
Yeah.
I'm new to Discord. I joined a
Jace
Discord.
is the Discord
yeah.
person.
Oh,
So
really?
I
We'll
know
ask him
I'm
about it, yeah.
Yes, definitely ask him about it because he's phenomenal at it. He's the tech person in our of our relationship of this
Love that.
podcast, baby. Yeah, for sure.
Who does the editing? I'm curious.
I actually now am going to be the editor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've had an editor for a while, but I'm learning to do it, and it's been a really fun journey. So
On
the last
Final Cut, Adobe, which one are you using?
I'm actually using, it's a company called Descript.
Oh.
And so it does video editing as well, but it's great because it like transcribes the entire episode. So you see it, written out, and that makes it really easy to go back if you're like, oh fuck, let me take that again. Like you can actually see it on Descript and then you can just get rid of it. You can just delete it. It's so great.
That's interesting. I do
Yeah.
our editing. I use Final
Nice.
Cut Pro,
Okay.
but I had never heard of this.
Yeah.
I've only really ever heard of Final Cut and Adobe. So I was like,
Yeah. I mean, especially for audio editing, it's a really nice
Yeah.
way to go. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Something to look into.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You got 5 minutes? Okay.
Well, what was I gonna say? I had something I wanted to say.
Final question. I can pull up.
No, it wasn't a question. I just wanted to say I think it's great that you have this book of tools and like practical tools, because I do feel like a lot of times when people are wanting advice or wanting just to know how to navigate an issue, like they want steps that they can like follow.
Oh, totally.
We had a listener not that long. He submitted a little story that he wanted advice on, and he had mentioned, he was like, Nikki gave these practical ways to handle this problem in this previous episode, and I really enjoyed that. So, and then he gave us his whole story that he wanted advice on. So I think that's super important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'm
people
glad.
want steps and, kind of like with that T1, T2 thing, also things that they can like quickly reference so that you can like kind of like cut to the chase rather than like sit down and like have this like, okay, where do we want to start this? But like instead, like you immediately just know and can identify and go into it.
Totally.
And I think that makes like conflict resolution so much easier.
Yeah, and we have a big thing on conflict resolution as well, and repair after
Yeah.
a fight. That we have
Yes.
a chapter called Repair Shop, and we take the relationship to the repair shop, and so things along those lines. A lot of things are acronyms because we're nerds, and
I love that.
Like radar is
Yeah.
an acronym, and repair shop and all of those things. So
That's cute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope a lot of people get value out of it, and again, regardless of whether or not you're a monogamous, non-monogamous, or friends or family, you can use it.
Well, and I guess one of my final questions is, y'all have been doing the pod for a while. How do you see it, continuing? And
Gosh,
I
yeah.
know you guys have this book coming out now, but like, in terms of the pod, what's
what's next? TV show?
That would be really cool. And it's funny because we have been courted by people to do a show, but usually they want us, they're like, oh, you guys are a triad. And we're like, no, actually, we're not. And then they're not interested anymore. But yeah, we're not, I guess, exciting enough because we're just three friends doing a podcast. But I don't know. I would love to do more speaking engagements for sure. That would be great. Find more ways, to bring the information to other communities.
Have you guys done live shows?
We have, yeah.
Okay.
In 2018, we did a 10-city tour in 2 weeks, which I don't recommend, everyone.
No.
It was nuts.
That sounds miserable.
It was extremely challenging and also really fun.
Okay.
But you're on a plane every other day and flying like all over the country, and it was nuts. It was
Wow.
it was a lot. So we probably won't do something like that again immediately unless we, I don't know, find that we just have to do that. But hopefully more live shows, that would be great. More ways to discuss all of this information with our Patreon members and with our Facebook group and stuff like that. And maybe classes at some point. That would be really fun.
I was going to say, for y'all, I really picture like workshops.
Yes,
you know?
workshops,
Yeah.
classes, absolutely, all of those things. Because it is more of an education-based podcast, so I think all of those would be really fun. So hopefully just continuing to grow as we almost are at a decade of doing this. It's so nuts.
Y'all are doing great.
No,
Thank
you do
you.
phenomenal. Like I said, every time I went on Reddit, everyone had nothing but phenomenal things
That's
to say
really
about
kind.
you guys.
I appreciate
so
it.
I always emulated y'all in the non-monogamy. Well, I know I say non-monogamy, but you guys also cover a variety of relationships. But you know, I think just because you guys all three have experience in that, and you know, you offer the variety of perspectives. Yeah, everyone always loved it. So yeah, I think you guys do a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Well, plug yourself.
Yeah.
Tell our listeners where they can find you, Dedeker, Jace, where they can find the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us know. We
Stuff.
can throw, I don't know when this episode is releasing, if it's before or after, we can throw a link where they can like maybe go if they
Yes.
want to like pre-order or whatever. Yeah.
I think it'll
Absolutely.
release during, right around that time.
Right around
Oh, is it
that
right
time?
around the
Oh,
time?
that's
Okay.
excellent. Okay, great. Yeah, you can go to multiamory.com/book and find all of our pre-order information on there for the book. It's available on Amazon now, and yeah, definitely go and check all of that out. Additionally, you can find us at Multiamory_podcast on Instagram, at Multiamory on Twitter, and then we're on Facebook at Multiamory as well. I'm at msotelo, SOTELO. EM. So yeah, in all of those places. But yeah, just Google Multiamory and you'll definitely find us.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, you'll find. Y'all are very Googleable.
Thank you. Yeah. The other day I
Googleable.
Googled myself and I was like, oh, there's an article. I forgot that I did a couple weeks ago. So yeah,
that.
a lot of things on there for sure.
I need to Google myself.
I was thinking about
Yeah.
when you were saying, you know, you guys do the educational approach. I remember when we first started the pod, we kind of definitely took a very educational approach. And now I feel like people just like listening to us fight. And
Oh gosh. Oh my goodness.
I know, like when we're giving advice to people, like, you know, Kami's like trying to read and I'm like, just get to the point. And it's just so funny. But like, you know, it's just funny how every pod evolves and like, I love to see it. But yeah, you guys are doing phenomenal and I can't wait to read the book.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So yeah, I'm very excited.
I
for
want
it.
a signed copy. So
Oh, absolutely.
Same.
Oh my
Please send
gosh.
us a
We'll just
copy.
send
Yeah.
y'all some copies for
Perfect.
sure.
No, I want to order one. And then I
Oh,
wanna
well,
get it
thank
signed.
you. Yes. No, we definitely will sign it for you. No problem. We're having, I think, a book release party in LA sometime the last week of May.
Oh,
so
perfect.
we'll definitely let you know about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please do.
And then please, listener, come as well. It'll be on all the socials.
Oh, awesome. And we'll share it on
Yeah.
our pod as well for
Thank
all of our
you.
listeners. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. And don't forget, wear condoms. We love y'all. And you can find us at doubleteampodcast.com. You know where to find us.
Or at Kami and Nikki. Yeah.
All links in the episode description. So, yeah.